A group of us came together because we all had the same issues and challenges.
That in the 70s and in the 80s and even in the early 90s, our unique communities, we struggle through individually. We always thought that it would be best for us to speak for ourselves, but we have learned that systematically and politically it does not work that way.
Those early days, we knew each other, but understanding that there was solidarity and power for all of us to come together to advocate for each respective community's needs.
Communities of color are not a monolith. We all have our own unique experiences and perspectives. However, there's a real value in collective strength when we come together to identify our shared goals and priorities and work toward creating a more just and equitable society. And that's where I see the real value of CCC.
It's really hard to divide and conquer when you have a strong voice in coalition members.
Since our inception back about 10 years ago, CCC has been a thought partner, a supporter, and shoulders that we've been able to stand on as we've established our organization.
We need to work together to impact policy and to drive decisions to benefit our community.
Even around the country, this concept of a racial justice coalition composed of culturally specific organizations is pretty unique.
Research from the CCC within our communities across the state has demonstrated the power of how information can be collected and used for good when community is in charge, when community is leading.
In the 20-year history of this coalition, they have accomplished so much.
One of my first experiences when we were first starting out as Kairos PDX was the opportunity to go for a legislative day down in Salem. And it was coordinated by CCC, and it really was empowering for me it felt like we were infiltrating collectively, to have all these other groups, people of color, coming to make sure that our voice is being heard.
A major legislative initiative for the Coalition of Communities of Color was the Student Success Act, which we worked to help pass in the 2019 legislative session. This was a historic investment for K-12 education in Oregon, but most notably was groundbreaking in the equity investments that it made, including culturally specific services.
One of the things that I think has been monumental for our community that I think came directly out of CCC over the years was the whole concept of culturally specific services. Most of the resources were going to mainstream organizations who said that they service communities of color, and in most cases did not do it very well. We know our populations better than anyone else, so therefore you should provide those resources directly to us to provide those services. And we're still seeing the impact of that change today.
We were able to win the Portland Clean Energy Fund, which is a groundbreaking ballot measure initiative to fund climate justice and just transition projects that prioritize communities of color. Learning from the Portland Clean Energy Fund experience, we took that same approach of centering frontline communities to win 3 groundbreaking environmental justice bills as part of a statewide coalition effort in my first legislative session.
People of color communities have done the least to contribute to global climate change, but unfortunately bear the brunt of the impacts. A devastating heat wave when the Pacific Northwest, got up to an unprecedented 116 degrees. Less than a year after that deadly heat wave, we worked with our members to get state and local funding for air filters and air conditioners to better prepare people for the next heat wave.
I can count on at most both hands the number of organizations nationally as well as locally that are race explicit, racial justice, and have research capacity in-house that is an active strategy that works alongside advocacy or organizing or environmental justice.
And research and data are so central to help us establish the future that we all deserve. Ultimately, I believe that community data can save us all.
I'm very humbled to see that, when we put our mind together And when we plea for love and for compassion, it works, right?
Given the current political climate, the coalition is more important than ever. My hope is also that the coalition will continue to just remain absolutely laser-like focused on their mission, because we need that now more than ever. It's no secret that people of color in this country are under attack.
For me as a leader in a predominantly white state, predominantly white city, it is important to have a collective group of people around you who you can really depend on to be, one, a reflection, one, to process with, one, to stand in the gap. I really believe in that collectivism.
We need to be much more bold, articulate, courageous, ask for what we think feels impossible, because piecemeal solutions aren't working.
We need to be more forceful now than we ever have before to make sure that we don't go backwards, but that we continue to move forward and demand what is necessary for our respective communities.
As the challenges of the 21st century continue to emerge, the Coalition of Communities of Color will continue to organize our communities for collective action, resulting in social change to obtain self-determination, wellness, justice, and prosperity. Please join us in honoring 20 years of success. Let the celebration begin.